Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to do an alcohol marker illustration, and I had so much fun with this one because I was listening to an audiobook by Alex Michaelides called The Maidens, and it had a very kind of Greek mythological vibe to it, and so I was like, oh, I'm going to draw a statue while I listen to this audiobook and play with markers, and it was a vibe, and I was enjoying it, so that's kind of a fun thing to get out of a funk if you're kind of like, oh, I'm really loving this book, or find an audiobook that you've been recommended by a friend who really gets you, and then play that while you sketch something that's kind of related to what you're listening to. It's a lot of fun. And I find when I flip through old sketchbooks and I see pictures and I was listening to an audiobook at the time, I'll instantly be transported back to that world, and it's just kind of neat. Anyway, I'm sketching here with a purple Col Erase pencil, and that's an erasable colored pencil by Prismacolor. They come in assorted packs of 12 or 24 colors, and I have the 24 pack, and I like it because I'll use different colors depending on the color scheme of what I'm going to be painting. And I like to use these for sketching under watercolor because they don't dissolve, but they also kind of blend in, or under alcohol marker because they're not so waxy that I have to worry about the tip of my marker getting clogged with wax. And again, they do kind of blend in with the alcohol markers. You may want to lighten your lines though before you go over them with alcohol markers, because once you have added the marker on top, you won't be able to erase the pencil. So just a little word of caution there. I want to tell you about the markers I'm going to be using here. It is the Copic 24 Manga set, and it's a nice arrangement of, I would say, bright and pastels, mostly pastel colors. This color is one of the darkest colors, this blue here. And it's a really pretty arrangement of colors, and Copic reached out to me to do a review of their sketch markers, and I told them right out straight that I have some of your markers from 16 years ago. They perform really well and I like them, but I've heard some issues about quality control over the past couple of years. So if you want to send me some new markers to review and compare to my older ones, I'd be happy to, but it's going to be an honest review. And they agreed. They were fine with that. I do have a bunch of questions out to them right now. I'm waiting for feedback, waiting for their answers back to before I can complete my review. But this is one of the packs that they sent me. And my experience working with this pack of markers has been wonderful. It does seem like the caps are a little bit looser than my old ones, but other than that, I'm not really noticing a difference. So if you have any information or any experiences about Copic markers, the Copic Sketch markers in particular, that you would like to share, please do in the comments below. If you've purchased them in the last couple of years, if you wouldn't mind telling me when you bought them, where you bought them, and if any dried out some people have said they've bought some and they've had cracks in them, or they've dried out within 3 months or something like that. If you could let me know the percentage of your markers that dried out, or just give me your anecdotal experiences. I mean, obviously it's going to be anecdotal if I'm curating different experiences like that. But I just want to get a good feeling of how the brand is. If you've bought some in the last couple of years and you're like, yeah, they've all been great, nothing out of the ordinary has happened, they work wonderful, I want to hear that too. I want to hear it all. Because I think you tend to get a lot of negative experiences when you ask for opinions like this. So I want it to be fair. Because if I'm going to recommend something, I want to make sure that we've kind of heard all sides of it. But anyway, working with these was quite easy. This set is, I would say, a really good one to start with for a beginner. Like maybe your kids really want Copic markers, they're teenagers, they love anime or animation. I think this would be a nice one to start with because all the pale colors are really easy to layer up and blend. You don't have to have a ton of experience to make those look good, and the colors do look nice together. I'm using 12 colors out of that 24 set, and they did work very well together. I'm lightening up my purple line work there because I realized once I added the marker to it, and it looked a lot darker. So I decided I better take some of that pencil out unless I want it permanently part of my sketch. So that's just something kind of to think of. A lot of artists will take a kneaded eraser and just kind of roll it over their sketch after they do it to lighten up their lines, but it didn't occur to me until I added the marker to it, and it's like, oh, that's getting real dark. The other thing I like about this set of 24 is that it comes with a little brochure that actually has some little DIY lessons in there. It comes with like a coloring page that you could photocopy onto your marker paper, and has a little guide and tells you what colors you're using. It shows a demonstration on how to do a manga eye and how to do hair and how to do like skin tone. It shows some different blending combinations. It shows, it explains the blending color, their color numbering system, which I have to say, like I might understand it and then I will completely forget. It's kind of like how I have left-right confusion. I always have to stop and think, what's my right and what's my left? I know it sounds probably absolutely ridiculous, but maybe it's because I use a bunch of different brands of markers. I don't know. I have a really tough time wrapping my head around their numbering system or any marker numbering system, because it seems like it's like, okay, it's not really based on value. Is it based on saturation? I don't know. It just kind of like, it goes in one ear, not the other with me. I can't seem to get a grip on their blending numbering situation, but I tend to blend by eyeballing it anyway, and picking colors by eyeballing it, and just kind of using my intuition, which it probably doesn't help for people that are brand new to markers, like knowing what to put together. I'm sure there's a very logical reason for the numbering system, and I would follow another marker artist for that logic. I go for what looks and feels right in the moment when I am creating. I decided to use some, because I really wanted to use as many colors as I could from this set. And so I'm using some yellow, like a really pale yellow for highlight, and then this pale pink for midtone, because also I'm using color temperature to bring things forward and to push things back. So cooler temperatures pushing things into a shadow, and warmer temperature colors bringing things out to a highlight. So like on the apples of the cheeks and the nose and the hair, and like the parts of the statue that are brightly lit, as you can see from the little reference photo in the corner, those I'm doing in warmer colors, and then the shadows I'm doing in cooler colors. Because you can see I'm doing a statue that's probably, I was thinking it might have been a marble statue, but it's probably more of a bronze statue with how it's so patinaed. I'm not sure, but I thought the value range on that was really lovely, and I could play with colors within the value range and assign colors to values. I thought that would be kind of fun with this manga set to kind of showcase it, because I don't do manga art, although my style can look a little cartoony with markers. I will absolutely admit to that. And I think part of that is because I like to work expressively and loose. You can get photorealism with markers. That's not what I do. I don't want to spend that much time on a marker artwork, because markers fade. You know, all your alcohol markers are going to fade unless... Well, yeah, actually, I don't think there are any light fast alcohol markers on the market. Winsor & Newton had some ethanol-based artist markers that were light fast, but they pulled them from the market about 2 years after they launched them, so they're no longer available. There are a few watercolor marker brands that do a light fast marker, but for the most part, unless you're, buying a marker that's light fast that like advertises it, it's going to be fading. So I'm not going to spend hours on something that's going to fade, even in a sketchbook. I don't have problems with things lasting in a sketchbook. Some people say they do, but I haven't. The only issue I've ever had in a sketchbook with my marker art is like sometimes like the facing page or the back of the page will get a little yellow or discolored. But as far as the artwork itself, I've never had an issue with any of the brands that I've used. But everybody lives in different parts of the world with different atmospherical conditions, and I'm sure humidity or super arid conditions could affect things. It just, in Maine, I haven't had any issues, and we have all the seasons, so take that for what it's worth, for what you will. Now I'm using a 0.5 Copic multiliner, and I'm using this because it came in one of the other sets that they sent. And I thought, well, I'll keep this all to Copic products, except for the initial just pencil sketch, and that way I could see how they work together. Now this is a little thicker of a nib. I generally will work with a 0.3 micron or fine liner from another brand, because it's a little bit thinner than this, and I can go on the corner of the marker and get a thinner line. So this was a little bit thick for what I wanted, and it definitely gave the piece a cartoony look, which I tried to kind of get rid of the cartooniness by adding grays you'll see in a few minutes here. But I thought the multiliner worked fine. It didn't strike me as, any different than other quality fine liners I've used, but it worked fine. I think you can refill their fine liners though, if I'm not mistaken. Their alcohol markers are refillable. All their different lines of alcohol markers are refillable. And I believe the fine liners are. Their acrylic markers are not. So yeah, I mean, maybe that might be the only thing that's not refillable is their acrylic markers. I don't know if they had this glitter marker that I don't think was refillable either, but I don't know if they still make that or not. It's hard to say. It's hard to keep up with all of it. There's so many releases and so many companies, but the Copic Sketch marker's been around for quite a while. I've never used their Chow or their Classic, so I can't compare with those other lines. I've heard good things about both of those. The Chow just being a smaller barrel holding less ink, but it has the brush and the chisel nib. Their Classic marker has a chisel and a fine nib and holds more ink. It's a bigger square barrel. I like the oval barrels. Honestly, they fit my hands really well. I have fairly small hands, so I do like that size. But of course, the smaller the barrel, the less ink it's going to hold. Just something for you to keep in mind when you're choosing a marker. Although there are lots of men that use alcohol markers that use Copic Sketch, and it doesn't seem like the size of their hands and the size of the markers is an issue. But just something to keep in mind. I find it a very comfortable marker to hold, but I'm not super picky. I have lots of different brands, but if I have to say, if I prefer a marker size and shape, I do like the oval style markers. They fit my hands pretty well. But I'm not super picky. You might be, though, if you have arthritis or any other issues. You might want to really put a few markers in your hands and see what feels best overall. The nibs are neoprene or foam rubber. You'll sometimes hear them described as, which are a very bouncy, resilient nib. I prefer the foam rubber or neoprene nibs in general when I can get them, but I don't always feel like the price is worth it. So, it's one of those things where you've got to weigh those options. Is it worth the extra couple bucks to have a marker with a neoprene nib? It might be, it might not be. It might be for some colors, like your pastels, or ones that tend to go dry a little, or ones that seem to need to take that little extra use and abuse. I find like the earth tones, the pale tones, the ones that you tend to blend out with a lot more, they tend to feel drier, and I feel like there's a lot more friction on those nibs, so getting those in a neoprene nib might be worth it for you, where it's going to take a little bit more use and abuse. Plus, you tend to use those colors more if you do a lot of blending. I think, honestly, a good rule of thumb is to try open stock a few different markers, see what you like best, and then go from there, because they all work together. And don't get the same color in all the markers, get different colors because you can use them together. And speaking of, Copic is doing a $1 marker deal right now. I believe it's on till the 17th. That's what my email from them said. Somebody else said they thought it was till the 15th. So, don't sleep on it if you think you want to get this, but for $1, you'll get a random Copic Sketch marker shipped to you. And that's with shipping included. One per household, per email address. And I'll put a link in the video description if you want to go grab one. People that have tried to add more than one to their cart, it'll say it doesn't ship to your address. But if you just put one in the cart, it should ship to you. If you're having issues with that, let me know. Not that I can do anything about it, but it would be interesting to have that information as well. But it's a great way to try it, and then try it for a few months. See if it goes dry on you without using it for a year. And then, you can always invest. Now, they do have a deal where you can save 25% off any set of markers that you want with the coupon code FRUGAL25. But I'll tell you what, that would be ordering it directly from Copic, so you probably would get the freshest markers. And if there were any issues in the past with their caps, hopefully you wouldn't get anything like that because you get it directly from the factory. That said, Blick has their Copic markers 24 to 44% off every day of the week. So I think I would go for the $1 marker. I would test it out, see how the quality seems to you, see if you like the way it feels, like the way the ink is, and then in like 6 months, a year, if you love it, think about it, then invest in a set at Blick and Save. I know they're probably going to be like, why did we send markers to this woman? But that would be my advice if you can wait. I know it's exciting to get something new, but I want to make sure if you're investing, you're getting the most out of your investment. And just like any investing, you don't want to do things feeling like you're missing out. You don't want to do things like in a panic or impulsively, right? And your art supplies are different. You want to invest in the things that are going to give you long-term satisfaction and are going to be a good investment in your money long-term. So that would be my advice. I'm glad they're doing that. When they said they were going to do that dollar marker promotion, that's one of the reasons I said, absolutely, I'll review your markers, your newest batch of markers, because I like that kind of, if they're putting their money where their mouth is, if they're putting their markers where their mouth is and letting people buy one for $1 and try it, and then, you know, stand on their quality being good enough that it's still going to be running, the markers are still going to be usable, they're not going to have any problems, that people will come back and buy. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty confident type of promotion for them to be doing. And so that's what I would say, but get the marker and then see how it lasts. So I've decided to add some grays in here because doing the fine lining gave it a very cartoony look. And I'm just adding, these are neutral grays that are in this set. It comes with neutral gray 2, 4, and 6. And those are the grays that I'm adding in there and blending out. And I also blended it out with a really pale violet that came in this set, which I thought worked really well. And I didn't have any of their neutral gray colors, and I really like that line. Actually, I'm usually saying get a cool gray because that will go great with pretty much anything, where it's nice to have a bunch of different undertoned grays. Cool gray seems to be the one to go with. But this neutral gray is almost like a neutral tint in watercolor. It worked really well with these cool tones. It'll work well with pretty much everything. So that might be my new recommendation. They did send me a pack of 5 neutral gray colors with the fine liner, as well as some portrait colors. So it was a really nice arrangement for me to play with. But I'll get into that more when I do the full review of their markers in a week or two. So let me know if you have any experiences you want to share with Copic products. There's a finished artwork. I'll share still photos on Instagram if you want to check them out. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.